You're listening to the Quint's podcast.
Welcome to Season 2 of the Quint Fortnightly podcast, Land of a Billion. We aim to bring you expert conversations about the most contentious of the holy roti kapda makan trinity, that is, the makan over our heads and the larger ecosystem that governs it. This podcast is produced in association with the Property Rights Research Consortium, supported by Umidyar Network India. I'm Bhargavi, a researcher interested in land and access to finance, and your host for this season. Like in all other fields, technology has made significant inroads in land administration as well. Just about 10 years ago, getting a copy of your land record would require a trek to the tehsildar's office. Today, in a majority of the districts, in a majority of the states, copies of land records can be viewed and retrieved digitally. Even digitally signed copies are available for a lot of districts in India. Similarly, recently in the Samvitha scheme, we saw drones being used to map Abadi areas and generate property records for land parcels in these areas. And yet, much of transactional interface in the field of land is oblivious to technology improvements. Now, for example, pick any land transaction document and notice in a land lawyer's office and notice the manner in which land is described in this document. It is normally described with reference to a survey number which would have been assigned to that land parcel prior to independence. And generally, the boundaries are defined with respect to what is lying to the north of the land, the south of the land, the west of the land, and the east of the land. For example, it would generally read something like this, that all those pieces and parcels of land with all the trees and the structures standing on it, ad measuring so and so, bearing cadastral number 278, patta number so and so, and bounded on the east by Ghodbandar Road, on the west by the sea, on the south by municipal ground, and the north by property belonging to Shakti Mills or something. And in a day and age where consumers can actually tell Uber drivers and Zomato partners to deliver a parcel or pick them up from an exact location, it seems odd that you wouldn't use geo coordinates in documents as important as land transaction documents. Similarly, most of land transactions actually rely on paper documents. Credit is advanced on the basis of land documents. A sale of land is not possible without seeing the paper documents and so on. Now, partly this is attributable to professional mores entrenched in the conventional land lawyering community. But part of this may also reflect what people really prefer, right, as per the revealed preference theory in economics. And it really tells us some of the real challenges in scaling technology in land administration. To discuss these challenges, I have with me two guests today. Sanjay Kumar, who is a member of the Indian Administrative Service with over 9 years of experience in handling land administration in India. Sanjay has done field work in Argentina and Rwanda on informal settlements and land reforms. Currently, he's secretary to the government of Goa and pursuing his passion to modernize property records in Goa. We also have with us Jagdish Popala, who was the chief executive of Foundation for Ecological Security right from its inception in 2001 till 2020. Amongst the many other things that Jagdish has done, he has been instrumental in setting up the India Observatory, a data and technology platform that works towards improved governance of land and water for the benefit of local communities in India. Welcome Sanjay and Jagdish to the Land of a Billion podcast.
Thanks, Bhargavi.
Thank you, Bhargavi.
So Sanjay, just to begin with, as we all know, since the last few decades, India has been increasingly adopting technology in its governance. Could you give us some idea of how tech-based approaches are being used for land and property administration in India, and what are your views on the same?
Let us say that there are different aspects of land administration and technology has been used differently. In registration, it is only textual data entry. It was a kind of an MIS. So NGDRS software was made, a generic software, and then it actually streamlines the processes. I don't know how or whether it enhances the user experience or not, but it create a kind of an MIS. Maps were, because these were cadastral map, survey was done more than 100 years ago. So they were scanned and then they were vectorized. So that cadastral map is available in AutoCAD. That's all. And in ROR, this is the biggest success, that textual data, the ROR entry, record of right entry, has been digitized across India, and most of the places record of rights are available in textual, in computerized form, and which has changed the user experience. In maps, I feel that we have not been successfully able to digitize and improve, use the GIS as you said. And I would like to also add to it that you said drones and these modern technology. Some I feel that that is also a part of a problem. These cadastral maps were prepared through chain survey method. Anything less than 20 centimeter, the link size of chain was rounded off. So these maps were not very accurate. So now when we use new technology, drones, satellite imagery, or anything, the area comes different than what is currently recorded in land records, so and which has a legal sanctity. And this problem is not unique to India. Unfortunately, what you have said, you feel that as if we are only at faulting edge. Greece, for the last 25 years, with $1 billion of funding, European experts and European funding, have not been able to cover even 6% of their country. Now, in August, they have passed one legislation to put all the disputes there. And I'm saying the technology is part of the problem. For example, let us also discuss and understand that how far technology can help. Why do you need geo coordinates of a plot which can be known simply by the addresses? In urban area, one can find his house in the third street. My house is fourth, and by the relative position, one identify one houses rather than by geo coordinates. New Zealand has to pass an act in 2016 to delink and to declare that all geo coordinates have zero validity. Their legal validity was defiled. Why? Because Earth is continuously moving and these geo coordinates are changing. These are high cost solutions, and I would prefer that the investment can be better utilized and better technology and choice of selection can be done. So these are contours I wanted to explain.
Got it, Sanjay. So, no, completely with you on how actually for the average person, actually an address is a much better marker of a land parcel than anything else. But, I guess one sort of possible utility of defining land parcels through geo coordinates is the ability to extract information without being physically there, right? So, for example, today, if I were to pull out information about an undivided parcel of land which has not actually undergone revenue subdivision, but they belong to two different people. Currently what I use is I use the cadastral number and I use the subdivision number. On the other hand, geo coordinates may be sitting remotely. It's easier for me to pull out my land parcels, and I agree with you, there is a technology element to it and there is a legal validity element to it. And like you said, maybe we should separate the two, and maybe one is useful for identification and reducing information asymmetry, whereas the other is useful when it comes to enforcing legal rights. And maybe that's the right approach to be taken. Maybe New Zealand has done it. It's a good example that you've given. So coming to Jagdish, apart from government, where have you seen some ways in which civil society organizations have been using technology in the area of property rights? You've done a lot of work in this area. Could you give us an overview of the work that you have done in this space?
Yeah, before I get into my particular work or our organization's work, I think laying out the canvas much broader, you were talking about the slums and how settlement rights were given in certain parts of India. I think it was a combination of government of Odisha, Tata Trust, Omidia Network, and Cadastar, which used innovative ways of people actually crowdsourcing data from local communities and settling the rights of local communities. So we have many such examples. Even ordinary citizens have used technology to ascertain their rights. Maharashtra, for instance, there was a case in the courts where people took imageries of, say, 10 years prior and pleaded to the court that it was not a land like fallow to be given away to someone, but that this was arable land. So ordinary citizens do that. From the civil society space, like NGOs and other factors, you have very active people who increase the accountability of governments or other actors by working alongside governments and with panchayats and with local communities. Like in Rajasthan, the Jan Suchna portal which came up provides all sorts of information under one roof. It was an initiative done by civil society groups. The government embraced the idea, and you have information from some 20 plus departments all pulled together. So you have a piece of land, probably whether it is being left for pastures or if it was likely to be given away for mining. So that kind of an information actually improves the agency and moves it towards local civic engagement. There are other cases of the same thing like in the Right to Employment Guarantee Act, again, a group of civil society organizations scraped through huge public data and actually helped local communities, the block level officials, to see how NREG implementation can happen, again, using GIS and so on. So there are a vast range of such initiatives happening in the last 10, 15 years. Our story, the Foundation for Ecological Security, and what we call as India Observatory, our story goes back some 20 years ago. We realized that we work basically on forests, pastures, and water bodies, land which is collectively owned, not by as individual parcels by individual ownership, but collectively held lands. And if you want to work on forests, pastures, or water bodies, these are spread across human settlements. You need a bird's eye view to plan either for conservation or for extraction or just preservation. When we were bogged with this, we needed actually a bird's eye view to plan for such things. What satellites and remote sensing and the imageries that were being thrown out were offering, I would say, probably better than a bird's eye view. Not exactly like a hawk's view, but definitely conservation action could be improved using such satellite images. There were some mistakes, there were some gaps, as usual in any such. Ecologists won't talk to economists, economists won't talk to social scientists. What village people do is basically think in systems, that life is all about systems and that join dots between this series of disciplines. Now, what we try to do under India Observatory, how do you give vast sets of data, demystify them, and present it in a context so that local citizens can actually plan for their right to employment or any such agricultural activities or groundwater recharge and so on. So India Observatory was basically an interdisciplinary thing with a clear focus on action. I'll take you off into a small story. In South Andhra Pradesh, some 32 villages started working around a forest, and the forest department handed over the land to them under so-called joint forest management arrangements, and the villages were doing pretty well. And soon they realized, according to their perception, that the forest was improving. When we had this remote sensing and GIS facility, and we partnered with scientists from Indian Institute of Science, we tried to analyze what was the change in the biomass, basically the green matter that you see above ground. And we saw that, yes, the forest was increasing, but it was not increasing at the rate it should, meaning that people were also extracting higher. We could show this to the village people, but they couldn't make sense of satellite imageries. That challenged us. So we had to do surveys in the villages where we had to calculate every household how much of firewood is being collected. And then we presented to the village people, if each of your village actually harvests more than 7 cartloads in a month, your forest is depleting. That they could easily translate into action. When they realized that it was 7 cartloads, they came up with rules and regulations. We also worked alongside in the neighboring small kasbas to reduce the consumption in the dabas. That resulted in a much better conservation planning in that local area. So good science, contextualize it, make it intelligible, and then move it towards action where village people or ordinary citizens are in the center of decision making. That's the kind of potential that India Observatory has.
Thanks, Jagdish. That's fantastic. So, just to quickly recap, right, what you are suggesting is that actually technology tools, especially when used by civil service organizations and communities, can aid in planning, exercising accountability over governments, as well as governing the commons. So, that's an interesting experience of how you were even able to use it to be able to convince the households around the forests that actually more needed to be done to ensure that the forest grows at a pace that you would like it to grow. So this reminds me of an intervention. I mean, many people talk about it, that it's used in the US, which is that communities living around forests, and how do you incentivize them to invest in the forest? And they are actually given a subsidy to keep their land fallow so that they do not end up encroaching on the forest. And I think that's an interesting approach as well. And I suspect that, to be able to monitor these kind of interventions, you do need the kind of satellite imagery which gives you a near real time view, even if it is rough, even if it is not precise at the level that Sanjay mentioned in the beginning. It gives you a picture of what is the land being used for, and does the record reflect it as real time as you would like it to be. And even if not for record keeping, for management, it's useful. So thanks for that perspective. So Sanjay, you seem to be a little wary of the risks that come with over technologizing land governance and administration. So what are some of the sort of risks that you would like to highlight on the overuse of technology in land administration and governance. You mentioned a couple in the beginning. What, would you like to elaborate on them or some other ones
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. Thanks, Bhargavi, for the opportunity to clarify myself. I think I did not make myself clear earlier. I have not said that technology is bad. I said that there are cheaper ways to adopt those technology, as Jagdish has said. I am in support of that. Like I'm saying, adopt the GIS map as United States has done. Very cheap, without drone survey. They made it on tabletop. Telangana Municipal Administration has done wonderful work on tabletop without going in field. On Google Earth, you will get 10 times more accurate location as compared to by going in field and capturing the geo coordinate by your mobile phone or a Google device. That is what I want to explain, that there are cheaper and better solution with less money and we can get it done, rather than sometime driven by the solutions which are pushed by the vendors and people claiming that it is a centimeter accurate. And when I'm saying that the earth is Indian plate is moving about 4 to 5 centimeter per year, and so any coordinate which you will capture for a centimeter accuracy will not be within 6 months. The location will change. And as I said, now there is a total research and that has said that going for such a high technological solution is completely waste of money, and there are cheaper, better solution. I feel United States has adopted GIS based solutions very cheaply, very easily, and there the data is easily shareable. Where you go for these high tech accuracy surveys, you don't even share the data. In US, you can find the GIS parcel on any municipality website. I even wrote to one municipality that I was doing research at, and Dubuque, Iowa, and I asked that I want this analysis. I'm a student at MIT, so they immediately made the kind of did the spatial analysis and sent it to me. And you must understand, they have not invested that high cost drone. We must see how other countries has evolved to this stage rather than what has been told to us that this has happened. We should go and see, because what vendor or technological solution provider are telling us is not what actually happened there. This is what my point is.
Okay, point taken. The significance of GIS based technologies has also been growing over the last few years, right? Especially when it comes to land and property rights. The draft National Geospatial Policy, which was released earlier this year, has also created a considerable excitement in this regard. Could you tell us what you think could be the potential strengths and challenges of this policy with respect to land administration?
I think at its very core, what the policy has done is it democratized that space. For many, many decades, land records and survey records were held by a couple of ministries, departments, and very closely held. And it was a nightmare to get the data out into public domain. And about a decade ago, they started selling it, but now actually the policy encourages the the holders of such data to share this information and create a new ecosystem where a geospatial economy could be built. Like, say, if we had one example which a friend of mine, Sanjay Purohit, uses is all of us had maps for centuries, whatever sketches, and yet the invention of the blue dot on your GPS, that blue dot revolutionized the way that a Swiggy came in, Uber came in, everything moved towards the agency of the individual. If that kind of a ecosystem could be built, this is just an example, where several things, right from climate to groundwater to a range of economic opportunities could be cultivated. You have a wonderful economy built around using the whatever the records are already available.
Agreed. I mean, I guess, would you say that a lot of this depends on the procurement capacity of the relevant department? Because it seems to me that it would be really hard, right, to identify if there are about 10 or 15 solutions that are being proposed to deploy technology in land administration. You need to have a certain level of sophistication to understand which one suits your purpose best and which is actually bang for buck. Would you say that this links to the procurement capacities of governments?
In land administration, let me take the example of Rwanda. Rwanda had no land record. They prepared their land record from 2008 to 2012. When every country failed in improvement of their land record, Rwanda has successfully done it at very low cost, at very low cost. Their solution was very simple. They took the printout of satellite imagery. They asked people to walk with them and mark their boundary on that printout of that satellite imagery by pen. whatever they marked as their boundary, they scanned it and they vectorized it and they made it their survey plan. Now imagine that without surveyor, without machine, without anything, they have a satellite imagery where both parties have signed and agreed for a boundary which never require any surveyor in the future, and they did it very cheap. And that in accurate term, that is a legal demarcation because both parties have agreed. Wonderful solution. But I feel because and there are European vendors who are pushing the high cost solutions. US is fine. European vendors and universities are there who are asking Rwanda to do the survey again because it is a general boundary principle and it is a substandard solution, and they have declared it as a fit for purpose solution, which is fit for only developing nation, which is fit for because they can't aim for high tech solution of a developed nations. This is a false narrative pushed by these agencies and these experts. You just go and check how the title plan of the UK is issued. They never did any boundary survey. You check on Denmark cadastral website. I will share the link where they totally explain how their maps are not accurate and how their boundaries, because their cadastre is 200 years old. You must understand the cadastre word came from the continental Europe, and their maps were prepared 200 years ago. So they are even less accurate as compared to India's, which were prepared about 100 years ago. Fortunately, in Goa, the records were prepared in 60s and 70s. So we are far better. And whenever we digitize these maps, there are, I don't want to disclose, but there are steps where you have to do the rubber sheeting because these cadastral maps will not join together. There are too many things goes and it makes it less accurate. So I'm saying it on record. Rwandan records are far better. They are first in the quality of land administration as per along with Lithuania. Rwanda is first in the quality of land administration world over. Still, European went there and said that, oh no, your maps are not accurate or they are not good. They have forced Rwanda to again ask people to go for again resurveys whenever they are coming for sale deed or partition with the help of these technological tools of DGPS and other solutions. Even though Rwanda's maps are better than Europe, I asked Rwandan official when I was there in the field visit that you are the first in the quality of land administration. Why are you now pushing people for these high cost solutions? They said, no, Europe is a gold standard. My God, Europe's map were not, and they were not of that standard. So this is a kind of a complex we live in. In India, we are also trying for the last 20 years to digitize our maps. Main problem happens with map only. Why land record could not revolutionize as other aspects because of technology, I will share only one anecdote. You must understand this aspect. Maps were prepared with the chain survey method. Chain was 20 centimeter long, the link of a chain. So anything less than that was rounded off. So they are less accurate method. And when we use the word survey, must understand what is the meaning of survey, because that word is wrongly understood by nearly everyone. Survey was to assess the productivity of the land, that what is the productivity, whether there is a canal, how much rice you produce. So based on that, to fix your lagan, your land revenue. Somehow we linked it with ownership or boundary measurement, which is a wrong tool to use solve another problem. So when we now do the resurvey with the DGPS satellite, the area of the new survey, which is with a high technology instrument, doesn't match with the area which we recorded in the old survey records, which were prepared more than 100 years ago. And that is where every country is facing problems. South Korea, after spending $4 billion, if I am correct with the figure, their area did not match. They have to declare that new record does not have any validity. New records don't have any legal validity. So why you are wasting so much investment? When Lithuania and Rwanda could do it, they are the first in the quality of land administration because they never had any land record. So there was no question of mismatching. So here, US has provided a solution, very simple, very usable, and without putting too much cost. What they did, they delinked the digital boundary. Use of GIS, they revolutionized by delinking it with the legal boundary. They said it is a GIS, digital boundary, and legal boundary is different. Legal boundary, they will determine when someone will apply, then they will go in field, they will see their document, they will see the possession, they will take the field evidence. What we are trying, or other countries are trying, that while modernizing land record, we want to settle all the boundary disputes, which will never happen. So that is my point, and I hope I made it clear. And in the US, by delinking both, they have revolutionized the use of GIS. And because we are not being able to modernize land record, I'm saying we are holding back urban planning, infrastructure planning, and all other aspects where GIS can be of immense use, as Jagdish has said. And I totally agree with that, so many things, while chasing accuracy or these absurd notion of accuracy, we are losing on the approximate boundary which can serve better and in a more affordable manner. That's all.
Got it, Sanjay. So I think it will be a bit of a shocker to our listeners, right? Rwanda doing much better than India when it comes to maintenance of land records, but good for them. And I completely agree with you. Actually, the original purpose, the most original purpose of the survey, since the best recorded history in India actually begins only in the early 19th century, the most original purpose of the survey was defense purposes, or rather marking the territory of the British. And then slowly, as things stabilized, the purpose of the survey changed to collection of revenue. And it is only recently that our approach towards land survey has changed to and focused, like Sanjay is saying, on determining legal rights or property rights for the landholders. So indeed, for a country which has a rich transaction history, unlike Rwanda or for that matter, even Australia, right? In a country like India, there are bound to be inconsistencies across land records. And point totally taken that land is a much more complex asset than a lot of other assets whose markets have been completely digitized in India. So, Jagdish, what do you have to say? I mean, when civil society organizations or communities use technological solutions for advancement of property rights, what are some of the warnings that you would give them? What are the challenges that you've also seen in this area?
No, many, but firstly, to begin with what Sanjay was speaking about, really appreciate what is said, and it's about land is it's a potential bomb in villages, and if you are a few centimeters or inches this side or that side, you could actually create a unintended conflict of unimaginable proportions. So it's not just technology alone, but he being a civil servant, a regulator of very high value, they have to look at law and order issues and accuracy issues, which they legitimize by putting their seal. So it's better to have a great degree of caution. And I also see how he's looking at public policy, wherein the economics of the whole solution is being looked at rather than just a tech, the tail wagging the dog. So I think that's a phenomenal thing. And yes, I think what it brings out is what is the purpose? So he clearly differentiated what the legal entitlement or the title is, should be a different instrument, and the developmental value, whether it is for climate, seeing the carbon credits for the new markets that are emerging around land, that could be a different developmental objective where you could use other kind of technology which may not be that centimeter accurate, but still you can probably achieve a lot more to ascertain that the whatever are the benefits coming from the international markets are actually reaching the village people or whoever is the end user. There are several risks that I see in this game. First and foremost, to digress away a little, we have these tech products coming in, data, algorithms, every day coming in, but are they really reaching the ground in an intelligible manner? That is one thing we need to. Well, if it is reaching there, then is it leading to the desired action that you're looking at? That is another twist to it. The last one I would say, is it improving the agency of the village people or whoever the end user is, that person can apply in some e-seva or some Jan Suchna portal and get the relevant information? I think that's the larger kind of a movement we have to go to, mindful of certain risks. The technology could also be a monster on its own, unless it has the human element of what Sanjay is struggling of bringing in a larger decision making, ethics of it, even about data privacy or taking a prior informed consent. I think these are the challenges which one has to look at, and in a dynamic manner, because about land, things change almost every season. So how do you create that kind of an infrastructure wherein the agency of the village people or the end users is intact, that is central, and where their consent is taken towards whatever the use is put to, that's the larger kind of risks that I keep seeing, what's happening all around the world with data, and how do you secure people's custody of their own resources. That is something we need to be very watchful about.
Yeah, thanks, Jagdish. That's helpful. I guess that's applicable to technological solutions being applied across the board, right? Whether it's for land or for any other purpose. So, just to before we conclude, I wanted to, since the name of this podcast is Land of a Billion, let's begin with Jagdish. If there was one core challenge that you would put your weight behind, what would it be to secure land rights for a billion?
I think the new geospatial policy, I think it touches on that already. Well, we'll have to wait for it to get operationalized and actually into action. But my point is something like this: ownership of land, that is a property right, is a beginning. What you do on the land and what are the other benefits you get from that is the actual challenge. In order to do that, what I see the public policy, and again, as I said, the new geospatial draft is already talking about it, which is how can you enable various actors to interact with one another? If I have to interact with Sanjay's land records in Goa, could there be an API so that I can build up a climate resilience model around it, or a groundwater recharge kind of a application? So how can his server talk to my server, and how can my server talk to, say, a wildlife institute server? And maintaining the integrity of each server, and yet creating an ecosystem which does away the redundancy of each one trying to reinvent. Whereas we should build something where each one of us can reuse, rebuild, and reimagine.
Got it. And Sanjay, what would that challenge be for you to secure line rights of a billion? One challenge. I know there are many, but if you had to pick one, which one would you rather put your weight behind?
I would take forward what Jagdish has said. Policy is revolutionary, but there may be that data may not come out suo moto. And my goal will be that if this GIS data is free and downloadable anywhere as it happens in the United States, that will be a big, big plus. Because as he said, either through API or through directly downloadable data, even free, I'm saying. Because how will our researcher in academia, they will do research? How will the spatial analysis will happen? There is immense possibility how GIS can be used. And if we are just holding on to data and the data is not freely available, then it will be an issue.
Got it. So open access to most data management systems. And I wonder how you would do that since it's spread across so many different departments of the state. But I think I agree with you. It's a fantastic solution.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sanjay. Thanks, Jagdish.
Thank you, Sanjay. Thank you, Bhargavi.
Thanks for tuning in to our podcast, Land of a Billion, produced in association with the Property Rights Research Consortium. Don't forget to catch new episodes every alternate Friday, where I will bring you a rundown on the latest charcha around land and housing in India.
Thanks for listening. Log on to the Quint website and check out our other podcasts.